Thank you for joining us for this year's annual Veterans Day program and Kristallnacht Remembrance. Let me begin by introducing myself. My name is Mark Olson, and I am the chair of the Historical Society. First, I'd like to start off by thanking our incredible security team for ensuring that we can continue to have safe places to gather as a community throughout the Metro West. I would also like to thank Sandeep Iyer, the New Jersey Director of the Division on Civil Rights, for joining us this evening. Welcome. Jewish Federation of Greater Metro West is celebrating our centennial year. 100 years of leaders, agencies, volunteers, donors, and community. In times of crisis and peace, our community has come together to face the challenges that impact our Jewish community here at home and around the world. The Jewish Historical Society documents, preserves, and shares these stories. And we are proud to host this event this evening in partnership with the Holocaust Council. As we honor Veterans Day this year by remembering the sacrifice of our armed service members, once again, brave men and women are being called upon to go to war in Israel. Today, 85 years ago, on November 9, 1938, Nazi leaders unleashed a series of pogroms against the Jews of Germany. This event came to be called Kristallnacht, otherwise known as the Night of Broken Glass. At least 96 Jews were killed, and hundreds more injured. More than 1,300 synagogues were burned, and almost 7,500 Jewish businesses destroyed. And 30,000 Jews were arrested and sent to concentration camps. Now, many say that this premeditated act was the turning point in German policy regarding the Jews, and is considered to be the actual beginning of the Holocaust. In remembrance of Kristallnacht, I will now light a yahrzeit candle for all the Jewish lives we have lost since 1938 and recently in Israel. As I light, please join me for a moment of silence. The Jewish Historical Society has nearly 2 centuries of archives documenting the power and resiliency of our greater Metro West community. It's our honor to continue to serve our community by ensuring that we never forget and that we can look back and find hope. We are also here to continue to preserve the history of this Jewish community for the next 100 years. The tremendous and important work of the Jewish Historical Society relies on the generous donations from the community. On your seat, you will find more information in our brochure, along with the words to our national anthem and Hatikva. Please rise if you are able, and join me in welcoming Rebecca.
At the twilight Thank you all for coming. Karen and Risa, for being so great. And our temple for being so generous, helpful in every possible way. Thank you.
Okay, Peter, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you. Are you ready to start?
Yes, I am.
All right. Please tell us, where were you born and when?
I was born in Nuremberg, Germany on December 7th, 1924. A mere 99 years ago.
Mommy, thank you. Would you tell us about your family, please?
I had a very loving family living in a beautiful home in Nuremberg, where we did a lot of gardening, we grew everything, we had every fruit, we even had a chicken coop, and we had fresh eggs every day, and life was going very well.
Okay, and did you have any siblings?
I had a brother, a very wonderful brother, who unfortunately is not with us anymore.
Okay. What did your father do for work? You had a very beautiful house. It must have been a very special job.
It was a very special job. He was partner in a company that manufactured woodenware comparable to what today might be manufactured by Dance. Beautifully colored, and he sold it all over the world. He travels a great deal to meet with his customers.
Very good. And your mother?
Your mother? My mother had a big job taking care of what was going on at home. We had 3 in health. We had a living lady who took care of all that was needed around the house. We had a cook who prepared our meals, and we had a gardener who took care of the grounds. And she has many, many friends, and she was in charge of many charitable activities.
Wonderful. Tell us about school. You went to public school and religious school, yes?
That's correct. I was in public school early on, and shortly after Hitler came into power in 1933, it became very difficult for us to continue there because our people that used to be our friends now were our enemies, and our teachers seated us in the back row and wouldn't call on us. So my parents decided to transfer us to a Hebrew academy in nearby Fürth, F-U-R-T-H, where we traveled by streetcar. Took about an hour each way coming and going. And I thrived there, I should say that. In fact, I should say that Henry Kissinger's father was my religious teacher, and his son was my classmate, and so there.
Okay. And I understand your parents taught you to speak English at a young age. Why was
Yeah,
that?
well, they didn't
Or your
teach us.
parents arranged for you?
They arranged for sex lessons, and they turned out to be very helpful in our afterlife.
Were your parents sensing that that would be helpful to you to
Yes,
learn
absolutely,
English?
absolutely. My father applied for a visa to come to the United States, and it took 3 years before the family was approved for entry to the United States. And my family, or rather we had family in England, and they invited my parents to send Henry, my brother, and me to England, to where they took care of us. We lived with them for about 6 or 7 months, and we went to school in London.
Okay, and that followed Kristallnacht, yes?
Followed Kristallnacht.
So
Yes.
we know that you were living in Nuremberg during that time. Can you tell us what you remember? What you felt, what you saw? Changes between, you mentioned that when you were in public school, everyone got along so well. Suddenly no one was talking to each other, but also just tell us everything that you can, that you'd like to.
Well, we got into fights with them. They tackled us and hurt us. You're talking about the Hitler's regime.
And around Kristallnacht.
Around Kristallnacht, I have to think.
Well, I remember.
Because I had transferred to the Jewish school in Fed, and that may have been before Kristallnacht.
Okay. Now, Peter, during Kristallnacht, when so much was destroyed, your family's house was not. Is that correct?
That's correct, because my father had, as I said, a very wonderful business, and a high-ranking Nazi was trying to make a deal with my father. They were negotiating, and so he made sure that our house was excluded from what happened during Kristallnacht. Namely that homes were broken into, everything was smashed, people were thrown down the stairs and sent away to camp, but they were subsequently, after a week or so, returned to their regrettable existence at home.
So you went to London with your brother because your family, you had family in London that sent for you to come,
Right.
and your English came in
Came
handy.
in handy. We were able to do quite well right from the outset, and our English improved fairly rapidly as we went along.
Okay, and you were in London for how long?
Until the war broke out. That was in the summer, and all the schooling in London was transferred to the countryside, and all the school children were billeted in private homes. And my brother and I were together, and we were billeted with a lovely family, but they had no idea of the healthy appetite of young guys, and we were hungry all the time. Until the school system transferred us to Guildford on Thames, and we continued schooling there, and etc.
That's a lot. Now, when did you see your parents again?
Actually, our parents got their visas to the United States during the summer on their way to the United States after they had their visas, they visited us in England and spent a couple of days together, and then they continued on their journey to the United States, where they, you want me to go into that?
Yes,
Where
please.
they were met by representatives of HIAS, which is the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, and they helped them to get jobs and to get living quarters. They were extremely helpful. My mother got a job as a chambermaid in a residential hotel, and she was poorly treated, mainly by the Jewish residents there. And my father got a job in Newark as a billing clerk for a foundry down there, and he maintained that position until his death in the 1950s. I think it might have been 1955, I'm not quite sure. And he earned a living, and I went to work selling newspapers, and we all helped to maintain the family. We didn't have much money, but we had rented an apartment in Vailsburg. I went to West Side High School, and I walked back and forth from school to home every day, and on the way back I did the shopping at the A&P for my mother, and we took advantage of every free item rate coupon that we got, because we needed that in order to live a good life.
Peter, when I asked you if your parents were able to bring anything with them when they came, you replied that they brought it.
10 marks, which you just informed me used to be $80.
Today that would be $80.
It surprises me, but each one had $80, or the equivalent of $80. And that was it until the highest came into help.
Incredible. There's a very lovely story about what you did to save money, and that included on your haircuts. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I got free haircuts at the haircut school right near Penn Station in Newark. And I walked down there for my haircut.
Were they good haircuts?
I got different ones today.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So you came here, your family established themselves, certainly in great contrast to the kind of life they lived in Nuremberg.
Yeah.
In 1982, you decided to go back with your young family. Can you tell us about that?
I was on a visit
Yes, back
to
to Germany.
Yes. We took our 15 and 17-year-old children. I think they're both here tonight. Am I right? And we showed them around Nuremberg where we lived, and I phoned the people who lived there at the time. They still had the same phone number, which ended in 50915, or 3 digits ahead. And they were very sweet people. They invited us to come and see their former house. We had tea and cake with them, and we subsequently in the United States took them out for dinner while they were visiting in New York.
What did it feel like going back, Peter? and being in that house again?
It's hard to say. It was emotional, obviously, and it was very thrilling also. And our family enjoyed the visit very much. I want to say this, where the synagogue stood, and it was destroyed, burned down during Kristallnacht. There's now an apartment complex, very modern, and alongside of it, there's a patch of grass with a monument erected on one side of it, which read in both Hebrew and German. Only few of us can remember this house in all its splendor.
Okay. So Peter, in 1943, when you were 18 years old, you were drafted. You were not drafted because you were not a citizen.
I was called before the draft was, and they told me that I had an option of not serving or serve, and I opted to serve.
And why was that?
I was 20 years old, I think, so it must have been in 1944.
Was it a hard choice to make, to serve, when you had the option to
I don't
vote?
know.
And tell us what enemy alien is, and how that applied to you.
Well, at that time, I was an enemy alien when I first came here, because I was not a citizen, and I came from Germany. I guess we weren't at war yet at that point, but nonetheless, we were in the category of enemy aliens. It didn't affect our lives at all. I don't even remember why they give us a title, but there it was.
Very good. And when did you become a United States citizen?
During basic military training, after a few months of training, I was given this opportunity and I took it.
Okay, and what was it like being a Jewish boy in the service?
Not any different.
Not any different from anyone else?
No.
Okay. And I understand you did some schooling. The Army helped you with some schooling?
I was allowed to take certain because of my average, my testing average. I was rated fairly highly, and I was given the opportunity of joining a military, it's the military, right?
Well, you studied engineering.
I studied engineering because it looked like the war would last for many, many years, and they possibly needed engineers more than riflemen. They tested us, and I passed the test, and I was sent to Connecticut University for about 6 months of training and preparation for engineering. Subjects included chemistry, mathematics, physics, etc., and so on.
Very good. Peter, tell us about your father and a saying that was very important to you, per aspera ad astra, which translates, would you like to translate it?
When I was in the military, I was in the 78th Infantry Division, and an F Company of the 310th Regiment. And I corresponded with my parents during that time, during the training period, as I did before and after, of course. And one time I received a letter from my father where he mentioned a Latin saying which reads, per aspera ad astra, which means through darkness to the stars, which translates to that you have to do a lot of hard work before you reach success. And it had great meaning to me to such an extent that I took a knife and carved it into the stock of my Browning automatic rifle, which was my weapon during the war.
Peter, you're a decorated World War II veteran. Your harrowing experience during the Battle of the Bulge, the deadliest battle of World War II, earned you a Purple Heart, a Bronze Star, and several other medals for your service. On December 16, 1944, after a week of fighting, you were captured. Please
We had succeeded during that week of fighting, capturing a village in German-side Germany. We felt very good about it. The name was Kristallnacht. And there was a fortification in front of it, which we knocked down with artillery fire, and then overcame the German troops, and the village was ours, but not for a long time, because the Germans on December 16th began a major counterattack, which became known as the Battle of the Bulge, where they succeeded in entering and pushing us back, and in capturing me. The capturing was done, trying to think. I was during the fight for Kristallnacht. All of the villagers from German villages left town and vacated their homes to where our commanding officer ordered us to seek shelter in the basements of these homes and get a good night's sleep, which we tried to do. And all of a sudden, the Germans began their counterattack while we were in those basements. And I woke up to the command, Raus, which meant get out of wherever you are with your hand hoch, with your hands high. And we proceeded to do that, and from that point on, I was a prisoner of war of the German government.
Peter, I wanted to mention the weather. It was the coldest winter on record.
That's what
The
I
snow was
told.
deep.
It was very cold, and I suffered from frostbite.
Now, tell us about your capture. There was a German soldier you spoke of.
Yeah, he was put in charge of me, a German soldier, nice-looking young guy, my age, 20 years old, and he handed me a chocolate. Oh. And I often try to imagine whatever became of it. Without doubt.
Peter, you told me that you were marched through town and those citizens that remained were throwing. Please tell us about this.
Yeah, we were, the German soldiers marched us behind their lines, and we passed by a village where the local residents came out to call us dirty names, which unfortunately I understood, and they threw rocks at us, and we were then marched to a warehouse-type building where I was interviewed by a German officer who asked me to sit down at a table in front of him and to empty out my pockets and put everything in the table.
Was he speaking to you in German or in English?
He spoke in English. And I proceeded to do that, and then all of a sudden, he said, no, you're not, and also speaking in English, you can put everything back in your pockets. And as I proceeded to put it back in my pockets, there was a piece of string which was about to put in my pocket, and he yelled at me, "Nicht die string! Nicht die Schnur," in German. And of course, I dropped the string like a fool, and he said, "Oh, you speak German?" And I was that fast, and I said, "Yes, I took it in high school for 3 years."
Terrific. Peter, you spoke about being marched to cattle cars.
To the camp, yeah.
And tell us about that.
That was our means of transportation to the German prison camp. There were 70 of us in each cattle car, pretty much. And by that time, most of us developed a case of dysentery. And we had needs for sanitary doings, and we couldn't help ourselves but mess up the floor of the cattle car, which was our home for 5 days. And we were fed very meager rations, rye bread 2 or 3 times a day, a little lukewarm broth, and maybe a potato and some vegetables. That was our diet at that time.
Were you able to change your clothes?
No, I couldn't. In fact, I couldn't. As it turned out, I couldn't change them for 5 months because the circumstances were such that wherever I headed after that point, I never came in contact with warm clothing, fresh clothing, or warm water, or soap, so that I was in these dirty clothing for 5 months.
Peter, your frostbite continued.
Yes.
there's a story about you cutting your boot, and your boot wasn't able to provide warmth as a result. Would you like to mention that?
I didn't follow it.
Okay, that when you cut your boot.
I cut my boot before all this happened. Before any of this happened. I cut my boot while I was chopping wood as an infantry soldier. Chopping wood, we made a fire that night to stay warm. And it cut a slash into the top of my boot. That's the end of that story.
Your feet stay cold. Okay. And you must have lost a lot of weight eating so poorly in conditions like that.
Well, in the time period from my capture to my release by regaining my freedom, I weighed 140 pounds before all this happened, and I weighed 98 pounds when I came out.
So in May, roughly 5 months later, you were liberated as a prisoner of war. Please tell us about that.
Well, what happened one day is that our guards disappeared. And that same day, the British came in, and as it turned out, I became a prisoner of theirs. I'll have to tell you the story. They gave us orders not to leave camp, but they didn't provide any food. So some of us disobeyed their orders and went anyway to forage for some food, and then came back. And then when they saw us coming back, they made us spend the night under confinement.
Just one night, though.
Well,
One night, okay.
that was enough.
So you got to the American base? How?
Oh, yes. This was after the Germans left. We really, during my capture, never had access. I'll come back to that in a minute. To news, we didn't know what was going on. And we had nothing to do. We sat around all day. It was terrible having nothing to do for 5 months. But that's what it was like. We tried to make conversation, but we ran out of conversation very quickly. So anyway, now to your question.
About how you found your way to having to arrive at the American base. After the British had released you.
We somehow knew that the American lines were on the other side of the Elbe River in Germany. It was about 4 miles away from the Americans on the other line, on the other side of the Elbe River. So we took off and went 4 miles to the Elbe River, and we found there was a bridge that had been bombed into parts, and we were able to crawl onto the parts, one part after another, until we reached to the end of the parts, and we were at the American lines
Did you get a new
on the other side of the Elbe River.
Hope they gave you a new uniform.
They gave me a new uniform, they gave me, I don't even know if they gave me a boot. They gave us food and a shower.
Okay. back to Newark?
Oh, I mean, from the military. I was just trying to figure out where I lived at that time. Where did I live?
Well, as time passed and the war became
I lived
in
in
Newark, in Vailsburg, yes.
Vailsburg, on Smith Street. On the second floor of a two-family house, and we had the fortune of having Nazis as our tenants below us. Not only that, we each had a shed in the basement for our coal. Only our coal was the good hard coal, and our downstairs tenants was the pea coal, which burned very rapidly. And we caught them stealing our coal. And they were Nazis.
So, years later, you're at your office working. And what made the month of May 2017 a particularly interesting month for you, Peter? Did a letter arrive?
Oh, the letter, yeah. A letter arrived from a person unknown to me, a German woman. She turned out to be about 45 years old. She wrote a letter of apology for what then Germans had done to us, how they deprived us of our property, of our home, that they mistreated us, etc. and so on. And she wanted to apologize in that letter for everything that they had done to us. And I wrote her letter in reply, and I have a copy of that letter here. I have lived a long life, and you are one of the finest human beings that I have ever encountered. Your letter brought tears to my eyes for many reasons. First, because it called my mind to the undeserved suffering of my family and of so many other families like mine, and the loss of my beloved childhood home. But it saddened me also, because it is obvious that you, too, are suffering, and it pains me to think that you, who are blameless, you had the option to ignore what you learned in school, and instead you confronted it. My tears reflect the fervent hope that the humanity, dignity, and compassion you have shown is shared by others of your generation and the generations to follow.
Peter,
did I thank you before for coming here? Did I do that? Yes.
Okay. Peter, as we decided what questions to ask, I wanted to give a moment of extra pause before the questions that follow for the magnificent letter you wrote and how deeply it affected me when I first read it, and I'm sure the entire audience. But as we do get to the next question, we come to this. You're a very well-known philanthropist in this community. How has being Jewish helped guide you as a professional philanthropist, you and your beautiful wife, Laura?
Well, we thought it was advisable to help our poorer Jewish people who were in need. And for that very reason, I took several positions in the community as a leader. And in that capacity, I took a leader job in Irvington first. In Irvington, where there were maybe two Jews there. But subsequently, I became a leader in the Jewish community of South Orange, Maplewood, and then I took a leadership position in the professional, the builders division, the professional divisions, and that's about it.
It was just a pleasure to meet you for all you've done for this community that I know firsthand through my father who you knew and through so much. So we're nearing the end of our talk. The Jewish Historical Society preserves and shares the most remarkable stories of our Jewish Greater Metro West community. Would you care to share with us what you want your legacy to be and how people should remember your story?
I want them to live happy, healthy, and fun lives. And to make the world a better place.
Peter, we're coming to a close. Is there anything you'd like to add that we may have overlooked?
Probably. I can't think of it.
Okay, well, we thank the Jewish Historical Society of Metro West. Thank everyone for coming, and there are refreshments waiting, and we can all gather.
I want to thank everybody again for being here. And I want to tell you that I thoroughly loved this evening.